This video is sponsored by BJJ Mental Models.
To establish any meaningful grips. Oh, look at this movement!
Probably don't know who this guy is, but Jozef Chen, he first came to my gym, B-Team in Texas, as a 17-year-old with bleach blonde hair. I thought he was another regular tourist popping through. I rolled with him. I was very, very impressed with how good he was.
BJJ prodigy up-and-comer Jozef Chen.
Younger members of the team Al Leone, this guy, Jozef Chen, still I believe only 19 years of age.
I would say I'm a jiu-jitsu competitor and currently training out of B-Team. However, right now just traveling.
This guy is like a mystery.
And yet, a rising star in the world of jiu-jitsu.
I want to talk to you about this and about how you've gotten so good so quickly.
All right, that's the question on everyone's mind. Yep.
Some big names are saying, you've got to watch this guy.
Give us an honest answer. Enough with this studying. Get out of here. We want the truth.
Like, what's your process look like, and what are the things that you do differently that's allowed you to accelerate your learning like that?
Probably know me from either Who's Number One,
Let's see if you can find the finish here.
Hands, or Andrew Tackett.
You have to pay close attention to Jozef Chen because he could be a future world champion.
I mean, it's hard to... I don't think I really understand what happened so far yet.
Oh, he can take it! He does! Just finish Aokiwa!
It's still a little bit like... It's not registering yet.
Because everyone's always asking me about your heritage, and I'm like, I got no fucking idea.
So I want to get to know your origin story. You kind of threw us around in different places. You're obviously very young. When did jiu-jitsu find its way into your life?
Let me think. I did striking when I was like 13 in school. One of my classmates.
You think you could beat the shit out of Damien?
Fucking you up.
Got my money on Joe.
But after that, once I turned 14, I decided, okay, me and my friend, we wanted to learn how to do jiu-jitsu. So we looked up our local jiu-jitsu gym.
You just decided like you want to go check out jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, because we didn't really know how to do jiu-jitsu. It was like striking, It seemed pretty easy, but jiu-jitsu were like, what the fuck?
But after doing jiu-jitsu for like a couple months, I was like, I think I like this more. So I ended up sticking with that.
So it was really just from online watching MMA, thinking it's pretty cool, and then wanting to give it a shot yourself?
Basically, yeah. I'm like playing UFC 3. I'm like, ooh, this MMA roll looks cool.
Of course, the video game is now the entrance into the sport itself. That's not that surprising.
But when COVID hit, I was actually in Taiwan, and I wasn't able to go back to China. School was canceled, or at least postponed for the time being. I actually had a lot of time to train as well as study. So that's when I started watching Instructionals, listening to BJJ Mental Models.
I started listening to this podcast when I was an orange belt. And so that definitely introduced me to many ideas that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. I read Art of Learning when I heard it on this podcast.
For those who haven't heard me prattle on about Josh Waitzkin, the relevant thing for us is he's a black belt under Marcelo Garcia, and he's heavily involved in the creation of Marcelo's MG in Action Academy. And he's also the author of The Art of Learning, which is an amazing resource for sport-based skill development and building a mindset conducive to learning.
Another book that I really like, it's again a gaming book. It's called The Will to Keep Winning, and he's like one of the first pro gamers in the world of Street Fighter. And he has a really nice book that talks about a lot of these ideas in depth, and I think it's very interesting because you could almost like, if you just replace a few words, you could almost think he's talking about jiu-jitsu.
That's when I started to become a little more self-directed in the form of my learning, because I found that just in my mind, it made sense that you don't really want to, you want to learn from your coach or whoever is there to instruct you, but that can't be your only source of information.
So I just trained every day
just
and
like
watched
tunnel vision,
Instructionals.
nothing else, no distractions.
And yeah, so that was like the first taste of me being able to train like
full-time.
properly.
Out of all the gyms, why did you choose B-Team? Did you know someone at B-Team, or like how did that come about?
Well, obviously, like I was a fan of the DDS, so I was definitely gonna go to one of the gyms. But so when I first came here, I wasn't sure which one I was going to go to, but then I ended up living closer to B-Team, and then I first came here, and I really enjoyed it.
I think the thing that influenced me the most to like the way I thought about, I actually should learn this technique was getting it hit on me. So some of the shit Craig would do to me, a lot of the shit Ethan would do to me, a lot of shit Damien and all of them would do to me, I'm like, I might have overlooked in the instructional. Like I might have tried playing around with it, but I've never had it been used that effectively on me. So I was like, oh shit, okay, I need to definitely work on this. And then I'm like, so especially Craig did a lot of his power ride and power bottom and power top stuff on me, and I was like, okay, this works very well. I might need to take a more in-depth look at this.
What then would be, what's the most recent instructional that you have watched that you think is the one, that people should be keeping an eye on? Or are there any, let's say, any hidden gems that you would recommend people check out?
I'd say probably Gordon's half guard passing, John's new wave passing, Craig's power ride, and Nicky's wrestle up were probably the most interesting to me as of late.
Like, I think probably the first thing that led to me thinking like this is, first of all, like in The Art of Learning, Josh Waitzkin talks about two different ideas that I think are quite opposing, and that kind of inspired me to take this idea elsewhere. And now I see it similarly in other areas where he talks about form to leave form, as well as making smaller circles. And for me, at least the way I interpreted that information, I saw them as kind of contrasting methods to approach training. And eventually that turned into like what I would call growth versus performance and two different ways to train. I use form to leave form. From my understanding, it's more of a idea in which you're looking to take explicit knowledge and make it more implicit, or at least bring in a lot more intuition, in which you don't have to consciously think about what you're doing, but it's more of instinctive reaction. And I think for me, at least in the way I talk about growth versus performance, I would put form to leave form in the performance area, where you're looking to take skills that you've been consciously working on and bring them into your subconscious so you're able to do them, especially in situations in which there's greater pressure. So in competition, you don't necessarily have the time and have the reactions in which you would have in the gym. It's going to be a lot more high paced. It's going to be a lot more aggressive. And so you can't really rely, at least you can't rely all the time on you actively thinking out of these situations, because a lot of the situations that you're presented with now are going to be far more time sensitive than they were in the gym, because people are going to be reacting super fast. People really care about the outcome. So very different. And so that's how I see it fit in.
You practice the form until you don't need the form anymore.
guys want to learn how to do stuff like Jozef Chen, be sure to check out my sponsor, BJJ Mental Models. You see I got the rash guard on, BJJ Mental Models. Boop, boop. Made by Inverted Gear. With over 50 plus hours of audio masterclasses from the best minds in the sport, you gain access to the best BJJ community on the internet, including an exclusive invite to the private BJJ Mental Models Discord, featuring over 70 elite level black belts from all around the world. And I really like their coaching tier, where you receive world-class sparring analysis, get detailed technical feedback from their all-star black belt review team, featuring over 20 world champions, and much, much more, which you can start right now with a 7-day free trial, just by clicking on this link, or type in my offer code ALEC for 50% off your first month. I got the long sleeve. We also have the short sleeve right over here, fresh out the bag. There you go. And it says Champions Mindset. So if you guys want to be just like Jozef Chen, check out BJJ Mental Models. And this is the collab with Inverted Gear. So check out their website, invertedgear.com.
Now, the other item you brought up, also from Josh's book, is he talks about making smaller circles. And again, a concept that was very formative for me, but I would want to hear in your words how you've applied that and what that concept means to you in practice.
At least, again, in my interpretation, is that it's similar to taking what you already have and looking to refine it, try to take a lot of the nuances and then make them conscious. So you're able to think of different ways you can use them. So for example, like the example you were talking about earlier is like this armbar transition, wherever it may be from. If you're able to do it intuitively, it's hard to make adjustments to. So if you want to change something about it, whether it's foot placement or timing or weight distribution, etc., it's going to be hard when it's stuck in like a very intuitive state. So for me, making smaller circles would be trying to make it less intuitive, more conscious, and so you're able to start to make these adjustments. Also, you're able to think more deeply about this technique in ways where you can think about, oh, how else can I use this in other areas? Is there a different way I can do this? Is there a difference, like sequentially, can I do it in a different order, etc.?
On one hand, you're talking about the process of making things so automatic you don't even have to think about them. But on the other hand, now you're talking about deliberately thinking about things and stripping away the non-essential and kind of focusing on what's really important. And that's one of the things about jiu-jitsu that I found really a challenge to get my head around, is that there often are not any absolute answers. A lot of the time, it's a polarity, it's a spectrum. Sometimes you do things one way, sometimes you do things the other way, and it's all just very context dependent.
Chen trying to get to, now reversing there.
Like false reap action, and he gets in on it. Let's see if he can find the finish here. The heel just...
This has been a technical and exciting match to watch. Very technical, a little much as we watch this match. But I think Jozef is just
a dangerous proposition here. Oh! I believe that might have been a Z-lock. It was tough for me to see from my angle.
Representing B-Team.
I watched this YouTube video by Core Gaming, in which they talked about innovators versus honers.
Innovators are players who want to figure out new strategies in a new game. In the purest sense, they want to keep finding solutions to unique problems. Well, some people want to practice or study things in a game to get good. Magic creator Richard Garfield refers to these players as honers. In other words, execution and knowledge.
I think of them as two very necessary parts to your approach to jiu-jitsu, because I find that if you only have one, like let's say you're only looking to like improve technique in terms of like finding new technique to work on, etc. However, you don't take into account this performance aspect, then you can know very many techniques and you can understand all of them. However, when you're put under pressure, it's going to be much more harder for you to use them, especially in a competitive situation. As opposed to, I think there are other people that only focus on performance, in which they only train hard. It's always under pressure. It becomes a lot harder for you to start incorporating new techniques, new strategies, etc. So I view them as both very necessary, but you kind of have to go between like an ebb and a flow of one versus the other.
Are you drilling exactly what you see in the instructionals, or do you see the instructionals and then you're like, all right, in live training, I'm going to try this? Like, what's your learning when there's not a set class, there's not set high-level training partners? Like, how are you and your group of guys progressing, or how are you making sure that you're progressing at a fast rate?
For example, if it's something I'm fairly competent in, like let's say it's like some sort of deli hiva sweep. So in that situation, I wouldn't necessarily drill the move so much, as opposed to I would more try to do specific rounds, because the movement is fairly familiar and it's nothing too hard to do.
Just applying it.
Yeah. If something's more difficult, like, so sometimes if I had trouble with some leg entries or like the movement itself is difficult, then I'll
You just
focus
isolate
on drilling.
repping the movement
will
itself.
you rep the movement out? Like
If it's
Shanghai
hard to
or
do,
whatever?
if I can do it, and in terms of performing the actual movement in itself is difficult, then I'll rep it. But if it's easy, like if you do like some half guard pass, doing the movement itself isn't difficult. It's knowing when to hit it and like the
different
timing of
problems
it. Exactly.
I remember I read a book. I can't exactly recall the name. I think it's called Mastery, and I think I heard someone recommend it once. But it basically talked about different types of practitioners of various arts, whether it's like a martial arts or something else. But I remember one being called basically talking about tinkering, and that definitely influenced how I thought of drilling and
tinkering. I think I like that word a fair bit in terms of trying to experiment and kind of sandbox a lot of these things where, okay, I'm doing, like today I was doing 50-50 ankle lock. I was trying to play around with it because it's something I'm not very familiar with. Trying to have a dialogue, like that's what I do when I teach classes. I have them talk. So having a dialogue between your partner, how does this feel? If they're not tapping, I'm like, why didn't you tap to this? I'm like, oh, I think you could have done this better, etc., etc. It's like, oh, how do you feel when I do this movement? Like having that dialogue, I think really helps. I feel sad. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm gonna look to move in this direction or something along those lines.
I feel like my foot's gonna explode.
Because then you can drill, and it's not just like, I think one of the things that suck about drilling as well is, okay, if you're being drilled on and they're just doing 100 knee cuts, this is gonna be terrible. Yeah. You're gonna get bored out of your mind. But now you're actually engaging both parties, so both people can actually learn from this exchange.
By doing this and asking them and giving them these prompts, it also helps them gain a better understanding of what they're doing, and also stimulates their mind as well. Instead of them just sitting there lifeless or just giving a very, let's say, bland reaction, they're able to actually think about ideas for themselves. And then I find that you can, once again, like you said, generate a type of feedback loop.
Nice. Now we can use it to come up. What's your leg? Remember, we can place him in 50-50. There you go. Come here, Josh. Come on, go. Pass your line. What's your neck? Hat pummel.
This ties into another concept you talked about earlier, again, which Josh Waitzkin talks about in his book, and that is investing in loss. When you're generally going into a competitive situation, of course, your priority is to win, and that usually means you're focusing on your A game, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to learn and you're trying to grow, you're actually probably going to be focusing on the things you're not good at. And that's hard for people, right? Because you have to do things that you suck at, and no one wants to feel like they suck. So something that Josh Waitzkin talks about in his book is learning to view losing not as something that's taken away from you, but rather as an investment in your growth. And by changing your mindset in that way, it becomes more comfortable to go into these losing situations and to play your B game, for example, where you're not necessarily going to dominate. It can be hard for people to do that, but when you're in the gym and you're training, that's the mentality you want, because just going into the gym and doing competition rolls every single day, trying to win, you're just going to wind up practicing the same techniques over and over again. You're not going to be trying to add new tools into your game plan if you're afraid to lose.
And it can be quite daunting, especially, I think a lot of people, like especially myself included, I get in my head when I compete, and especially when I want to try work something new, I get very nervous, especially because there's this game that I associate as my A game, and so when I look to deviate from that, I get a lot more nervous than if I were to not do that. But I think it's also like similar to what we talked about, there's like a lot of these things are very necessary in order for you to improve.
Yeah.
なかなかこれだけの失敗多い人間もいないんじゃないかなというふうに思ってるんだけど、言ってしまえばゲームをやったこともその時点では失敗だったし、麻雀の道に行ったのも失敗だったし、何もかも人生失敗できてて、大丈夫そうな道行ってるとずっとばっかり選んでると行き止まり、結局それが行き止まりになっちゃうんですよね。
Did you finish high school? No.
I basically, I have most of my A levels completed, but then the time where the exams were happening, I was like, oh, the trials are happening at that time. I'm like, let's do the trials. I can finish them soon, but right now it's not the priority.
How are your parents with you not finish high school?
Once I started like being somewhat successful, my mom was like fairly supportive. She was just concerned like, okay, I don't want you to be like homeless and like just fuck everything up. So once it was like clear that that wasn't the case, and I was like I was doing well, first doing well in China, and then I was able to like be fairly well known there, and then compete internationally. After that, she was like quite good with it. But then my dad was just like, he's like, I think because he came from like a fairly poor family, and he didn't get to do university because he had to work. He really wanted me to do that.
Last goal, number 8. Number 7. Number 6.
Over time, I definitely have been influenced a fair bit by, like, obviously, I read Art of Learning when I heard it on this podcast, and then I just did a bit of thinking on that, and then read some other books, and then watched some YouTube videos, and then slowly it kind of, I wouldn't say I took everything from one place, but it's kind of like a mesh of like information that I found.
この気づいては1に戻されて、気づいては1に戻されてっていう感覚がやっぱり最高だなと思ってますね。
Now, what is the goal for you? Because I know you did striking MMA before, but now you're just jiu-jitsu. Is the goal to reach the highest levels in jiu-jitsu, or is it really try to get to MMA? What is the path? What do you want to do? What's your 5-10 year plan?
10 years I don't really have mapped out. I'm honestly gonna play it by ear in terms of see how much I still enjoy doing this. So like, I don't know,
Fuck me. Hopefully this works out.
Huge shout out to all the content creators that helped make this video possible. I couldn't do it without you guys. And also, Flow Grappling, thanks for letting me use all these clips. Couldn't do it without you guys either, man. You guys make the magic happen.